Hello darling, it's great to see you all again and thanks for joining me for today's video. I want to talk to you today about the valuable van life lessons that I have learned this fortnight. So you can learn from my mistakes, which will save you a lot of money. I must admit that van life is an exceptional teacher that teaches you many things, including how to self-care, how to survive and how to stay warm when it's freezing cold and how to solve problems, etc., etc., as well as giving first-hand experiences that is really, really valuable. And I have noticed from my experiences, it doesn't matter whether they are good or bad, but I have noticed from my experiences is that experience is the best teacher, which shows you the answers and the truth. So if you're looking for the answer to something, just look at your experiences and there you will find your answers as well as the truth. Because experiences don't lie. Experiences can't lie. And from my experiences this fortnight, I have learned a really, really valuable lesson. And I wished I had have known about this earlier, because if I had have known, I wouldn't have done it, and I could have saved myself a lot of money. So what are the valuable van life experiences and lessons that I'm talking about that I have learned this fortnight? Okay, well, first of all, I have learned is not to drive your van on a really, really low tank of gas. And it doesn't matter what type of fuel your vehicle takes, whether your vehicle takes diesel or petrol or whatever, just don't do it. So if you're driving along and if your tank light comes on your dashboard, you can go and drive a little bit, but not too far. So what you do, as soon as that light comes on, you go and you fill up. I mean, you don't have to fill up a full tank of gas or half a tank of gas, just $5 or $10 worth of gas is fine. Because I have learned that from driving on a really, really low tank of gas can cause damage to your engine, and therefore that could be quite costly. By driving on a really low tank of gas, that can cause many different things to your engine, including creating air into the fuel lines, amongst other things. So, please learn from my mistake and don't drive on a really low tank of gas. And it doesn't matter what type of vehicle you have, whether you have a van, a train camper, a car, SUV, whatever. Just don't do it. And if I had have known, like I said, I would never have done it, because I drove 54 kilometers on my reserve tank of gas. Yes, 54 kilometers. At least I know how far my reserve tank will get me from A to B. But I didn't realize that it was going to cause trouble to the engine. And even though I made it back home, I didn't run out of diesel because my van takes diesel. And so I'm assuming that everything was fine. And I was thinking, well, by me driving on the reserve tank, I'm going to save money by not putting any fuel into my van, and I get to use the last of the fuel that's in my van before I go fuel up. You see what I mean? This is how I was thinking at the time. But I have learned that's not a good idea. So the next day comes, and thank God that my apartment is right across the road from the shopping complex and from the petrol station. So I just put out at my driveway, and I've just driven a few houses down the road, and as I was in the middle of the road turning right to turn into the shopping complex, all of a sudden all of the lights on my dashboard came on and my van stalled, and I started to panic, and I'm thinking, oh no. And I managed to get to the petrol station where I filled up, and then I took off out of the petrol station, and I got about halfway up the road. It was just past my apartment at the time, when all of a sudden it happened again for the second time, when all the lights on my dashboard came on and my van stalled. So I managed to do a U-turn and get my van back home, where my van sat in the backyard for those 2 weeks, because here I'm thinking, well, I'm going to use common sense, and it's really, really important to always use common sense. I mean, I cannot stress that enough. And so I had to wait until I got paid before I could take my van around to see my mechanic, and it actually cost me $150. That's AUD for my mechanic to have a look at the van and to fix it. And I was really lucky that there wasn't any air in the fuel line like what I assumed that there was. Like I said, I'm not a mechanic, but I was just going by what Google told me at the time. But that's one of the problems that can happen, which was caused by driving on a really low tank of gas. And like I said, if I had have known beforehand, I wouldn't have done it. When that light, when my gas tank light came on my dashboard, instead of driving 54 kilometres, I just would have gone straight to the petrol station and put $10 diesel in my van, and this problem would have been avoided. So this was a really valuable lesson for me. It was a costly learning experience. So if you learn from my mistakes, and if you don't drive on a low tank of gas, you will be saving, not only will you be saving money, but you'll also be preventing damage to your vehicle. Because I think it's important that we learn from other people. By observing other people, from learning from their mistakes, as well as the good things that they do too, we can learn a lot, and we can avoid making the same mistakes that they made. Because my motto is prevention is better than cure, and it's also cheaper too. Because if you prevent something from happening, you are also preventing costs that may materialize, like for example, mechanical fees, like in my case, or medication, or doctor's fees, ambulance fees, etc., etc. And this time, I didn't use common sense. I didn't go by my motto, prevention is better than cure. This time I was actually naive. And I have definitely learned from this experience, and I certainly won't be repeating this experience ever again. So please, whatever happens, do not drive on a really low tank of gas. It doesn't matter what type of vehicle you have or what type of fuel your vehicle takes. Whatever you do, don't do it, because it can cause damage to your engine. And I was really lucky that my situation wasn't worse. It could have been a lot worse, and it could have been a lot more costly. But thank God it wasn't, and everything turned out fine. Because to be honest with you, I was expecting the worst. And here I'm thinking, okay, so now I'm going to have to go get a loan to pay for the van to be fixed. But thank goodness that didn't happen. But it could have been worse, a lot worse, but thank goodness it wasn't. So, the moral of the story is, learn from other people's mistakes. Prevention is better than cure, and it's also cheaper too. And don't drive on a really low tank of gas, you know. Just go put 10, 15, even $5 worth of fuel in. That's fine, because you'll have enough fuel in your vehicle to keep your engine safe and not cause any damage. And this is what I have learned this fortnight. And another thing that I have learned is that it's okay to camp in my van in the backyard, because even though technically I could have driven around in the van, at that point of time I didn't know that I could. And I thought, okay, I'm going to use common sense, which, like I said, is really, really important. And so, because I am a recovering domestic violence victim survivor, and because of my trauma, I now have anxiety, depression, PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, including nightmares. And I'm thinking, okay, so now what am I going to do when that horrible feeling, which I call the spider feeling, comes? Because usually when that feeling comes, I'll hop in my van and go somewhere, because when that feeling comes, I like to be in my van, because being in my van is my happy place where I feel safe. And the spider feeling will go away when I'm in my van. And to be honest with you, I wish that would happen when I'm in my apartment, but it doesn't. And I think the reason for that, like I've said in other videos, is because the domestic violence happens in an apartment. It didn't happen in a van. You see what I mean? So, well, that's what I think. I don't know if I'm right or not, but that's what I think. And so, whenever that feeling comes, I would hop in my van and go somewhere. But this time, I couldn't go anywhere because I had to wait until my mechanic has a look at my van first. So, I was okay for the first week. I mean, I still had the nightmares every night, of course. And then I'm in the kitchen doing the dishes when all of a sudden that horrible feeling, the spider feeling comes. So I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do now? Because staying in my apartment makes that feeling worse. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to hop in the van in the backyard. And I thought that being in the van in the backyard is going to be really boring. However, it turned out to be the opposite. And it was quite enjoyable actually, which is good. So another thing that I have realized this fortnight is that it's okay to camp in the van in the backyard. It can still be as enjoyable as it is anywhere else. So that's another thing that I have learned. So that's what I'm going to do in the future is that, like for example, when I'm at home in my apartment and the spider feeling comes and I have to get out of my apartment, but I can't go somewhere because I don't have much fuel in my van and I have to wait until I get paid before I can fill up the tank in my van. At least I know now that that's okay because I know now that I can hop in the van even though I'm in the backyard. That's okay because I can still camp in the van in the backyard and it can still be fun. So that's another thing that I have learned from my experiences this fortnight. So, yeah, so that's the moral of the story is don't drive on a low tank of gas and it's okay to camp in the van in the backyard. I mean, I can't believe, this was a really, really costly learning experience for me. I mean, if someone had said to me ages ago, whatever you do, don't drive your van or your car or whatever on a really low tank of gas, because it can cause problems to your vehicle, to your engine. I would never have done it. But the thing is, I didn't know. And no one told me anything. And this is why I'm making this video now so that you can learn because you may not know this. And you might, make the same mistake that I made by thinking, okay, I've got to get from A to B. You might have an important appointment or something, like a doctor's appointment, just say hypothetically. And you don't have much fuel in your vehicle. And, your doctor's appointment might be, say, tomorrow. But you don't get paid until next week. And your appointment could be really important. And, for whatever reason. And you think, okay, I think I have enough fuel in my van in the reserve tank to get me from home to my appointment and back home again. Now this is how I was thinking. You see what I mean? Here I'm thinking I'm going to save money by not putting any fuel into my van, and I'm going to use the last of the fuel in my van, and then when I get paid I'll just top up the fuel. But it didn't turn out that way. By doing that, it ended up costing me $150 that I could have saved. You see what I mean? So, I hope you learn from my mistake, and I hope you don't drive your vehicle on a really low tank of gas, because it can cost you a lot more money in the long run. And like I said, I was really lucky that that my situation wasn't worse, and that it didn't cost me a real lot of money to fix. So I guess I'm quite fortunate there, because like I said, I was expecting the worst. So I hope you learned something from my video, and I hope you learned from this mistake that I made, and I can guarantee you that I will never ever make this mistake ever again. So from now on, when my fuel tank light comes up on my dashboard, I'm going to go straight to the petrol station and put fuel in. Like I said, it doesn't have to be much. You know, just $10, $15, $20, even $5 would do. You know, it's enough to get you from A to B, and it's enough to keep your engine safe. So yeah, what more can I say? Yeah, so I hope you find something helpful and useful from this video, and I hope you have learned from my experience as well. I know I certainly have. Okay, so this video has been going for about 24 minutes, that's long enough. So I'm going to end this video here now. So of course, now remember, please subscribe to my channel to support me if you haven't already done so, and don't forget to give my videos a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next video. So until then, please take care and drive safely, and don't forget, never drive on a really low tank of gas. Bye bye, darling.